Welcome to We the World and our 2025 Manifesting the Dream event for MLK. Each year, we take time to remember Martin Luther King Jr. and his beloved community. And each year, we are thrilled to feature the many people and organizations who have taken action to be of service, not only in January and February, but all year round. We at We the World welcome you to take action and be of service at we.net/MLK from January 15th to February 28th. Please join us in being a part of this annual celebration and consider being of service in your communities and with us. Of course, donations are very appreciated at we.net/donate. My name is Jana Larson, and I am the HR Deputy Director of We the World. Thato Angelina Gabaitse is a Gabon, Botswana-based entrepreneur and a philanthropist. As founder and director of Lemon and Vinegar Ltd, she specializes in the distribution of agricultural produce, machinery, and equipment. With 6 years of experience in livestock and rain-fed crop management, Thato is a qualified horticulture enterprise manager providing consulting and advisory services. She is passionate about building partnerships and engaging stakeholders to develop impactful programs addressing social constructs like age, gender, and race. Thato excels at team building and program construction tailored to specific events and thematic needs. She's also a longtime We the World volunteer and mother and valued member of our team, and we love her. Thank you, Thato, for bringing your guest to our MLK event. And now, let us begin.
Thank you so much, Yana. It's a wonderful day today, and warm welcome to our guests. On today's panel, we will be delving deeper into the intersection of sustainability, human rights, and global climate leadership under the topic fossil-free advocacy and climate justice. The objective of the panel is to explore policy frameworks for promoting fossil-free solutions and climate justice. It will highlight the role of advocacy, responsible advertising, and youth leadership in the climate movement, aiming to shift global narratives towards sustainable energy solutions. On today's panel, we have wonderful friends and colleagues. And first will be Lazola, an experienced specialist and practitioner in the field of social justice and human rights campaigns with over 6 years of project management and campaigns work experience. She has collaborated with embassies in South Africa, Germany, and China with a key focus on raising awareness on campaigns. And as a researcher, critical, and creative thinker, she has produced impressive work in the anti-disinformation space. She is a We Lead Impact Global Mentor and one of the 2024 Royal African Youth Leadership Awardees. The floor is yours, Lazola. Please do share your insights on the topic.
Thank you so much, Thato. Thank you. I appreciate that very warm welcome. Um, I think the topic today is very important. It's different thematic areas that have existed for a very long time, but separately. And I think it's very important in going forward to start connecting the intersections. One of the biggest things that I was very appreciative is, the intersection and understanding and us discussing the intersection between human rights and climate justice work. A lot of the times we like to separate these two, but we forget that there cannot be climate justice work, climate justice advocacy work without human rights. Because at the center of climate justice is the justice of humans, right? We do live in this world, and therefore climate justice and climate change does not only include the environment, it also includes us human beings, particularly because we have a climate crisis on our hands because of human beings in this world. So it's so important then to delve deeper into conversations on how do we become fossil free, and it's a multifaceted topic in and of itself. But how do we become fossil free, therefore realizing human rights? And we then bring in our different expertise to have this conversation. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is specifically the aspect of advertising within how to become fossil free. One of the things that we forget whenever, and the advertising that actually manipulates public perception and then creates an accepting kind of public perception for fossil fuel companies. And by this, I will say greenwashing. A lot of these fossil fuel companies will come into communities and promise a brighter future and speak on bursaries and scholarships and speak on their net zero and their ozone friendly products. But what we need to understand is that it is extremely important to debunk these statements. And by debunking these statements, we can then begin to have proper policies that will tackle this level of false advertising, right? Greenwashing, by definition, is basically when fossil fuel companies come into the advertising space and begin to make themselves look environmentally friendly. They will have statements like, we support sustainable development. Within our energy mix, we are very cognizant of environmental protection. But the truth of the matter is, by existence, a fossil fuel company cannot support something like sustainable development. If your main business of the day is mining, if your main business of the day is actually extracting natural resources from the earth, you are definitely part of the problem. So then when it comes to this type of work, and when it comes to greenwashing, one of the most important things that Fossil Free South Africa we've put forward is basically to push an ad ban strategy, to basically have an advertising ban. These advertising bans don't necessarily say fossil fuel companies cannot advertise at all. But just like the tobacco ban, it is an ability to actually stop fossil fuel companies from saying that we are environmentally friendly, ozone friendly, net zero. Those types of buzzwords, they will have to actually critically break down. This also forces fossil fuel companies to explain to any layperson within their advert what is the energy mix, because these buzzwords are pushed and people think, oh, the energy mix, because they color it green and they have wind turbines and they have all of these solar panels, therefore it's ozone and environmentally friendly. But we know the truth is that advertising can say one thing, but the actual process can mean something different, right? So, an ad ban strategy is definitely one of the first things I think it's very important. And the UN Secretary General has come out quite a lot in 2024 to say governments all over the world and even municipalities need to start adopting greenwashing policies, policies that actually stop fossil fuel companies from spreading false information. That is greenwashing. And within this type of framework and this conversation, we need to speak about the inclusion of the youth. Because the truth of the matter is, terms like greenwashing are newer terms. Terms like intersectionality are new words, and methods of intersectionality within the human rights or social justice framework are fairly new. This is why it is important for when we say intersectional movement and human rights movement, we include the youth. And this does not only mean including the youth on speaking engagements, but at a policy formulating framework position. Youth need to be involved in parliament. Youth need to be involved in country parliament, in regional parliaments. And this is not to say that youth should just have their own side events. A good example is COP. We don't see a lot of youth within the decision making platforms within COP, right? If we saw that, and if we saw that, we wouldn't have the kind of uproar we had last year, where there are specific government leaders of a specific age, without being ageist, that make a decision, and a decision that the whole of Africa has deemed not fair. We're being given very little funds to actually properly transition, right? And also coming to terms with the fact that we don't have the technological mechanism, so we need more funding. Now, youth can fight for this better, especially when they include it at a policy and thematic area, because they are the ones that we are going to leave with this planet, right? They are the ones that can communicate these newer terms. They are the ones that can actually build on the work that a lot of environmentalists have put their hard blood, sweat, and tears into. Now, looking into the MLK legacy, it is important, again, to reinforce an intersectional aspect. The MLK movement was not just about race, it was about women, it was about people. It was about a human sacred, a humanitarian type of movement. It was a movement that speaks to the person not in isolation of their humanness. So when we speak about human rights, we need to also delve deeper into gender rights. We need to delve deeper into the youth. We need to delve deeper into, I mean, race rights as well within the environmental sector. We need to talk about representation within the environmental sector. This means actually looking into who it is we put forward to speak for us at different organizations, because they are hardest hit. Who are the hardest hit people when we say fossil free? Who will benefit? Are we sure that everyone is going to benefit? Another important thing that we always often say when we're trying to envision a fossil free future within the intersectional framework is to look at situations like pushing governments to have laws that force advertising companies to have their whole energy mix to disclose. This gives the consumer at any level, whether you understand climate change, you don't understand, everyone is a consumer in this planet. And when the energy mix, or rather what it is, the effect of the fossil fuel company on the planet is disclosed on the product or in the advert, that gives every single person in this planet the power to choose. And that speaks to the MLK legacy, to give everyone power in their own hands. No one is speaking for you, no one is buying for you. You can read and you can see that if I go to a specific fossil fuel company, if I am going to BP, if I'm going to Total Energies, this is what I'm bargaining for. This is what I'm getting, right? So it's absolutely important that when we look at policy frameworks, when we look at policies actually being introduced in countries, we look at these types of strategies. We also look at campaign awareness. I mean, it may seem like an age-old tactic, but the truth of the matter is there's still a lot more awareness that needs to be brought onto the people. People need to understand, what do fossil fuel companies bring into the world? It's not just petroleum. It's not just coal that gives us electricity. It's not just oil, but they also bring environmental degradation. They also bring health implications. They also bring labor implications, again, speaking to the intersectional importance of the work that we're talking about. Because when you look at the lack of mining rights that we see within the African context, it's absolutely horrid to see miners actually being discarded like yesterday's people in mines, being stuck there. Their human rights are completely being violated. We have a situation just here in South Africa of miners constantly, this is not the first time, miners being left in a hole to die. And this is, again, for the betterment of a fossil fuel company. It's for a betterment of a company. There we have a good intersection of human rights, labor rights, and the need for a fossil-free future. So one of the bigger things that we definitely need to do, and that can be a takeaway, Thato, is to include the youth in your government, include the youth in policy, drawing up new policies. And let's also step into an age of properly researched newer policies. There are many policies, especially in African countries, that already exist. But what we need to do is to start researching what it is when we say, what is a fossil fuel free future? What does that look like for us as a world? What does it look like at a country level? What does it look like at a municipal level, at a community level? Then we start formulating our policies based on that. Then we start saying that actually we do not want 10 fossil fuel companies mining in one area. A good example in South Africa, in a province called Mpumalanga, in one area called Carolina, there are 42 mining companies mining coal around one community, and they all are a circle around the community. This is one community inside, surrounded by 42 plus mining companies that are mining just coal. And we have two abandoned gold mines that were there. And all of the debris, all of the water is being contaminated. People are losing land rights. People are losing their family members. People are being promised a brighter future, but what they're actually receiving is a future just filled with death, and it's filled with lack of coal, because still in that community, funny enough, there's lack of electricity. So these conversations are very important, and the approach that I think is absolutely important we need to look at is inclusivity. We need to look at well-researched policies that speak to the context that we are in now in 2025. We had, again, in 1970, already scientists were coming out to companies like your Total Energy saying that, listen, your everyday work is affecting the globe. It is actually causing global warming. And for 10 years after, companies like Total Energies were actually disputing this. And only in the 90s did these fossil fuel companies actually come out and say, we have global warming, it is a problem. So now we need to start tackling in 2025, what are the policies that include youth in COP? What are the policies that allow all countries, especially recipients and the countries that are on the receiving end of the environmental degradation? How are they being given power to say no more? How are they being given power at a community level, at a civil society level, not just a government level, to say we want a cap on licenses that can actually be given to fossil fuel companies to come and mine in communities and at a country level. These are the types of policies that we need to start looking at and drawing policy frameworks from that. Thank you so much, Thato.
Thank you so much, Lazola. Wow, you've shared so much. My take home now is really that we need to stand up. We need to be focusing on campaign awareness, and for reminding us that Martin Luther King did stand up for intergenerational cooperation, for policy dialogue, decision making, and for those people who are deemed lesser than because they aren't contributing much to the capitalist economy, then these are the communities and these are the youth. Now, over to you, Barcos, delving deeper into the intergenerational cooperation, decision-making processes and how youth can take part. Barcos is an NGO expert, resource mobilization specialist, where he provides capacity building, grant proposal writing, assisting CSOs with research and development. He's recently working on some renewable energy projects here in Botswana. And please do share more on the work that you're doing and how communities and youth can get involved and feel empowered, as MLK stood for social justice. Over to you, Barcos.
All right. Thank you so much, Thato, and good evening, everyone who is part of this panel discussion. I'm excited to be part of this panel discussion for the second time, I think. My name is Barcos Mbakhwa, based in Botswana. I'm a resource mobilization specialist, also focusing on grant proposal writing. My role is more about assisting CSOs and companies focus on fossil-free solutions and climate justice, particularly providing them with training on how to apply for grant proposals for their initiatives, and also help them to write grant proposals that focus on renewable energy. The gap that I have realized so far is that in Botswana, there are already companies, CSOs and youths that focus on sustainable renewable energy, but lacks the funding support, both locally and internationally, even though there are grant opportunities that are available to support their projects. As it stands, they have already trained private companies, CSOs, and the youths to write grant proposals, and equally assisted them to apply for funding opportunities for their initiatives on renewable energy. There is a great funding organization called Powering Renewable Energy Opportunities in Sub-Saharan Africa. This organization aims to stimulate renewable energy demand in rural Africa to boost long-term jobs and reduce poverty through economic growth and empowerment of women. The program, with its pool of many funders, support productive use of energy projects and collaborative partnerships that are designed to meet the specific needs of local communities, with the overall objective of creating about 4,000 jobs, empowering 1,000 women, and benefiting more than 11,000 rural households in Africa. Some of the works that the youth and CSOs and also companies in Botswana is working on is to, one, to educate, to raise awareness to community members to adopt fossil-free approach and climate justice. Number two, improving livelihoods through renewable energy. Number three, disseminating knowledge with productive use of energy stakeholders, including public and private sector investors, innovators, donors, policymakers, and enterprises. The CSOs and companies also focus on empowering women to engage in productive use of energy activities, whether as active participants or just as end users. These local companies also design, install, and commission small-scale solar projects for off-grid power distribution, aligning with the government's commitment to sustainable and inclusive energy solutions. They also focus on research on renewable energy in Botswana. All these projects support global progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically on Sustainable Development Goal number 7, number 8, and also number 13. That is on climate action, decent work and economic growth, affordable and clean energy. You may all recall that we have a relatively new government here in Botswana with only 3 months in power. I think a lot have changed since then, when we elected a new, completely new political party into power since 1966. And our new president, Advocate Duma Gideon Boko, during the State of National Address, posted that the country will shift focus to renewable energy, and the government will commit to supporting this initiative, which we aim to see unfolding as time goes on. According to this State of Nation address, the government has emphasized a strong commitment to transitioning towards renewable energy, aiming to significantly increase the proportion of renewable energy sources in the national energy mix, with a particular focus on solar power, incorporating youth and their organizations in all this process. Our current president is an advocate for youth empowerment and inclusion. This is due to our country's high solar radiation potential and aiming to achieve a substantial percentage of renewable energy by 2036 or 2030 and 2036, depending on the stated goals. This includes prioritizing moving away from fossil fuels to mitigate climate change impacts. As a result of this State of National Address, Botswana is gearing up for its inaugural or first ever National Renewable Energy Week, which will happen in June 2025, where the youth will also have a chance to participate, either as individuals with their companies and also their civil society organizations. In a recent announcement, our Minister of Minerals and Energy revealed a groundbreaking mini-grid initiative aimed at enhancing energy access across the nation. The minister also emphasized the importance of fostering local partnerships through programs that empower Botswana to actively participate in the renewable energy sector. This approach not only aims to boost renewable energy, but also energy adoption, but also to attract investment and support continental goal of electrifying around 3 million Africans by 2030. With the new policies that we expect from the new government, we expect maybe to see tax deductions for CSOs and companies that specifically focus on this field of renewable energy. We also expect to see mainstreaming of renewable energy in education, workplaces, and across all sectors. Then to conclude, I think as you already know the funding situation that is happening to almost all countries in Africa as a result of USAID. I think we know that USA have halted USAID funding. And the future of foreign funding is a little bit uncertain for now. We don't know what is going to happen in the future. So CSOs and companies in Botswana and Africa have to find alternative ways to fund their projects, including local funding and local resources without being too independent on foreign funding. We therefore, as consultants, play a bigger role in capacitating these CSOs and companies, not only on resource mobilization, but also on advocacy. Going forward, I also strongly wish for more support to plan for workshops to capacitate the CSOs, companies, and youth to effectively do their work in renewable energy and climate justice. To attract more youth leaders in climate movement. I think it's also up to us as it stands to try and change the narrative that says the youth are leaders of tomorrow. In many workshops, we have always put it forward that we know that we've been saying that the youths are leaders of tomorrow, but it's up to us to change this narrative and see ourselves as leaders of today, because we have all the skills, we have all the knowledge, we have all the intelligence to lead all these initiatives as leaders of today, not tomorrow, including also actively participating on these initiatives that aim towards shifting narratives towards fossil-free solutions and climate justice in Botswana. So going forward, I think with the new government, we expect to see a lot in terms of achievement, in terms of climate justice. But as the youth, we have already pledged that we will be at the forefront of all these initiatives. Thank you so much, Thato, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for what you have just shared and the opportunities of growth, I believe, in Botswana, and seeing that the new administration is quite filled with young people. I believe they understand our plight and the challenges that we've been facing, and that it will not be tokenism as usual. Thank you for the insights you've shared. But one thing I appreciate about, even though the US has stopped foreign aid, I'm seeing a greater sense of collaborations and partnerships among CSOs and other countries pledging to continue to support even large corporations in the US. So that is quite commendable. And I think in as much as we were all shocked, the future is bright and the future is green. We'll be moving on to our next speaker, Clariss Masiya, gender equality and social inclusion expert who is passionate about climate justice and sustainable community development. She is a program officer, gender equity and social inclusion for Green Governance Zimbabwe Trust. And in her role, she's responsible for guiding principles of gender equality and social inclusion in all operational practices and ensuring gender responsive approaches. Clariss, do share your insights on the topic. You know, one thing that Barcos mentioned is the need for raising awareness, empowering women, and the installation of solar energy and this development of renewable energy space. And I'd like to think that we are all advocating for indigenous knowledge for these to be more sustainable as opposed to IP bought technologies. The floor is yours, Clariss.
Thank you so much, Thato. Well, you know, it's really difficult to be the last speaker when when a lot has been said already. And right now I'm just trying to collect my mind and see how and where I can start from where the previous speakers have touched. And I just want to say that it is quite a sad thing that the African continent, though we are rich in transitional minerals for a just energy transition. We are struggling. We are mad in a pool of energy poverty, and it's very disheartening that even in my country, Zimbabwe, when we talk about rural electrification, we are still relying mostly on coal, on Wange coal. We have Wange power station, and it generates electricity using coal. And we also have like one of the biggest lithium deposits in the world. And we have that opportunity as a country to harness that mineral resource and incorporate it into the provision of energy for the communities, for the masses. And that's a very sad thing. So in essence, the just energy transition dialogue, or the transition to clean energy in the African continent, is riddled with a lot of challenges relating to energy access, relating to the exploitation of the minerals. And yeah, it's quite a complex, it's a complex scenario that requires sound policies, sound policy implementation, and strong governance systems that prioritizes the rights of communities and the rights of people, and it prioritizes access to energy as a human rights issue. So I just want to just maybe say that in as much as we are talking about this access to energy dialogue, like we're having conversations about clean energy, we want clean energy, we want a just energy transition, and we're having dialogues in fancy hotels and spaces, but we also have communities that we work with. They have an understanding of energy, like I'm trying to find the appropriate word. They have an understanding of energy in their own marginalized context, and I'm pretty sure, and I have an understanding, and I have knowledge that they hope for cleaner energy sources because of the struggles that are related to, for especially to women, for accessing firewood to cook, especially in rural communities. The challenges related to getting clean and potable water, and all those issues, they all boil down to climate justice. They all boil down to issues to do with the just energy transition. And also on top of that, one thing is the lack of mining rights within African context. Like there's a huge lack of mining rights. And I remember reading somewhere that right now in Zimbabwe we have like 85,000 Chinese immigrants who are coming in because of the wealth that we offer, the wealth and mineral resources that we offer as a country. We have lithium deposits, we have chrome deposits, and there are issues of human rights violations that are going on in Chinese-owned mines that are exploiting those minerals. And it's issues that pop up in social media, issues that pop up in non-state platforms. And it seems like the government may not be prioritizing the rights of people and the rights of communities in the exploitation of mineral resources that can also contribute to the to the transition to clean energy. So I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry. So I'm just reflecting on this, is like, how can a community or a continent that is being rich in minerals be abused? Like, you can't be abused for something that you own, or violated for something that rightfully belongs to you, or allow your home to be destroyed over something that is within your own space, a space that you call home, and you allow it to go on due to greed and capture. So at the end of the day, in as much as we have all the policies, like the global policies, they are colorful and they are brilliant, and and we towards reaching the sustainable development goals, and they're really meaningful. They make sense. We have policies, like really have sound policies, but the implementation of it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It does not, and it doesn't offer safety and security to the communities that we are working in. My network kind of glitched. Am I still audible? There was a
Yes, you're
glitch
still
in my
with us.
network.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. So, and also, I also wanted to touch on how transitioning from the use of fossil fuels to clean energy can also be a challenge within the context of maybe like Zimbabwe right now. Like I mentioned earlier on, like our power on the grid 60% of it relies on coal, and we already have coal plants that are generating power for the nation. And we don't have the adequate resources. Like we can't transition overnight and say, let us transition, let us start using lithium and stuff, because at the moment we lack the resources and capacity, the financial resources and capacity to move from clean energy. In as much as we want clean energy, we have the hype, we lack the resources, we lack the knowledge, we lack the capacity to completely develop energy sources to feed into the grid, clean energy sources to feed into the grid and secure clean energy for larger populations. And you can see in communities such as Wange, in as much as there are issues around Wange is a community in Zimbabwe. Let me just give you a context. So Wange is a community in Zimbabwe where coal mining is going on, and also there is a power plant for coal exploitation within that community. And there have been various issues of the coal mining causing challenges for communities, causing challenges for children and women. They are causing fires going on. And that alone is a challenge. Maintaining safety and clean energy within that context of coal is a challenge for various reasons, because of greed and capture. We all know that. And we are selling this glib and oily picture of this, how the just energy transition will be fair for the country. And in my mind, I can't help but wonder, like, if we continue in this trajectory where policies are colorful and are not being implemented to recognize the rights of people, will this clean energy transition really happen in a way that recognizes the rights of communities? Yet we are struggling and grappling with what we already have, in as much as it is not clean. So there are a lot of issues to do with the transition to clean energy, and also climate justice. And before we continue going on the global platform, like the global north and whoever is developing these policies, speak within the context of what they know and what they understand and what is favorable to their economies. And we sit there in platforms like the COP, and we sit there in platforms, all the global platforms, and we do not have maybe the backbone, like our governments, us as individuals, we lack the backbone to really say that this is what we require as the global south. In as we offer this resource, and we think this will be the best way and the best trajectory for us, for one, for our human rights, and two, for the environment. So there are a lot of gaps in terms of our participation, and a lot of gaps in terms not only of youth participation, but women's participation and the participation of our leaders as well. Maybe they do need capacity development, and also we need representation of people who have a backbone, representation of people who have the right language, who understand, who have the right language, that they can negotiate better policies and better strategies that benefit the global south. So I think I don't have to say too much, or I may lose the plot. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Clariss. You've shared quite a lot, and there's a saying back home that "Moja morago ke kgosi," meaning that the last person gets to has the opportunity to share their views and summarize what the previous speakers were saying, and you did it so eloquently well. You've mentioned the lack of political will, where we have foreign NGOs now getting into the political space. I was watching a South African politician for a policy that is being adopted. I think Lazola can share more on it, that we need to be auditing and looking at all these actors that are coming into the country and getting cozy with politicians and our governments, but not representing the communities and what is right. And I think in terms of, like you said that it's a topic that is so sensitive and it hits home because we know and understand that the people, our families are still struggling. And I believe that is one of the things that why we stand so tall and keep on spearheading this campaign and standing up for what is right. So let's start these energy grids, renewable energy grids in the communities, more so that they know a lot about preservation and about conservation. Now, with the last words, we'll be talking about global strategies. Just your last words on global strategies to address this environmental security and human rights in the energy transition. There's so many proposals that are coming up. There's the UN tax convention that is going on. We're advocating for tax rebates, debt swaps, even though these are not enough, but they are some form of support that can help us to move from A to B while we're waiting for the phase out of fossil fuels. Over to you, Lazola. Do share with us your last words.
Thanks, Thato. I think with regard to the global efforts, there's something that Clariss said that I took with me, and it's the level of violation that Africa is facing at the hands of climate change and climate injustice. And I think it is important that when it comes to global efforts, that those global efforts are mainly aiming to capacitate in countries in terms of technological mechanisms, in terms of not just funding that we have to keep going back and getting, but we need the experts as well. We need the factories that will allow us to design our own technological mechanisms that will help us transition. And I think one of the bigger things is that it is important to put those sort of tax policies in place, because African countries are hardest, and at a community level, we're even hardest hit. So those amounts of taxes can't only make sense at a business and policy government level. They need to make sense to the layperson that's suffering from respiratory issues. They need to make sense to the lay woman that's lost a husband and a son to a coal mine and is now left alone with more children to take care of, right? So these policies need to include African countries and African civil society so that they are and at country level.
Wow, thank you so much. You've shared on the care economy and social protection. Over to you, Barcos. Last words on the global strategies.
All right, thank you so much once again. I think I'll just be brief, only 2 or 3 sentences. Maybe I'll speak more about the Sustainable Development Goals. I think I already highlighted the SDGs that aligns with the topic that we are discussing from now. I think if we look at the indicators of those like 3 Sustainable Development Goals, they can be great instruments of guiding us and other continents in a coordinated way of achieving climate justice, to ensure that we move in a more coordinated way with common understanding, not only in Botswana, but in Africa and also other countries. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Barcos. Over to you, Clariss.
All right. Thank you so much, Thato. And I just wanted to comment that in as much as the US stance is painful for us, and it could be a wake-up call for better governance strategies within our own context and with our national leaders. We are hoping that it could be a wake-up call, in as much as it is going to cause more suffering to the communities that we work with, and also the communities that are mostly affected by poor mineral governance and the lack of human rights in the exploitation of minerals. I think it's important. I think it could be a way that our leaders could be more proactive and could improve their strategies of governance. And I hope that it works. It is my hope that it works. And also, I just want to say, you also mentioned something about tax. Tax is very critical. The issue of taxation in the exploitation of minerals is something that we should prioritize, and that as African countries we should participate in and ensure that it also favors our participation within the global context, and that it's not only favorable to the global north, but that it speaks also to our rights. It recognizes our humanity as the African people who have resources that they offer, and that tax is a very important issue. It's important that it also prioritizes us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our panelists. We've come to the end of our session, and like they have already mentioned, I too believe that this is a clean slate where we will be rewriting the wrongs of extractivism and the conflicts that have been perpetuated by that. This is the time for us to build a world that we envision for future generations to be a habitable planet. Back to you, Yana. We have ended our session.
Wow. Well, thank you to Birgit and Ely, our events director and my tech assistant for today. Thank you to Thato, Barcos, Clariss, Lazola, for this fascinating discussion during these tumultuous times we are in. And thank you to our viewers for joining our broadcast today. Remember to please join us and take action to be of service at we.net/MLK. And donations are gratefully appreciated at we.net/donate. Goodbye from all of us at We the World.
Thank you.